Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third in our series of Pilot Careers live streams with the airlines who attended our Pilot Careers Live event North in Manchester back in July. We originally set off to do these live streams so that the questions that we didn't manage to answer during the Manchester event could be answered, because we had so many from the audience on the day and just ran out of time. But as these have developed, we're running the live stream, so you can also ask questions as we go along. You can see that you can type into the comments here and put your own questions forwards, either anonymously or with your name. And I will also use the questions remaining from Pilot Careers Live Manchester with Kate this evening. So I'm delighted to welcome a long-time supporter of Pilot Careers Live events, Captain Kate West, who is the pilot training manager for easyJet. And Kate has spoken at Pilot Careers Live events on several occasions in previous years and always gets a lot of questions because she is so generous in her sharing of her own experience and the knowledge and information that she has. So I'm sure we'll get lots of questions this evening as well. Before we get going, I think rather than me ramble on, I'll just introduce Kate to you, who can tell you a little bit about her and a little bit of an introduction into what's going on at easyJet at the moment. So Kate, first of all, thank you, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Karen. I joined easyJet about 14 years ago. I actually trained at a training provider that Karen worked for at the time, so we go back a long way. I trained through an integrated program because the MPL program wasn't up and running at the time. So I have experience of going through an integrated program myself, and obviously now I look after an MPL program for easyJet. So I joined easyJet about 14 years ago. I started initially as a first officer in Gatwick. I spent a little bit of time based out in Paris as well. Came back to Gatwick in 2016 for my command. So I've been a captain for about 8 years. And as Karen mentioned, most recently, my most recent role as training manager for pilot development. So that means I look after the MPL program, all of the new entrant pilots that come through into the business. And then also we have a pool of training first officers. So there are first officers who are also trainers who train many different areas of the training that we deliver. So CRM, crew resource management. They also train in ground school. We have some sim instructors who are first officers as well. So I look after that community as well and helping them progress through their careers. So that's me in a nutshell. easyJet have just started our new financial year. So our financial year starts in October. So we're just waiting to hear and any announcements about the previous financial year, our FY24. So hoping to see some announcements in the coming weeks about how our summer has been for us. But it's been a fantastic summer for those that have been out flying. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to fly because I'm currently pregnant, so I can't fly at the moment. But for those that have been out flying the line, it's been a very busy summer.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kate. Sorry, I muted and unmuted and muted myself then for a second. So thank you very much for that introduction. So just to recap, we're going to kick off with some of the questions left over from Manchester, but I can see already that we're getting some questions coming in. So please do start typing your questions in and we will do our best to answer them. Sometimes we end up with duplication of themes. So if I've missed your question out, it's more than likely because it's been answered through a previous answer, in which case, if you've missed your answer or if you've perhaps joined the live stream a little late, do bear in mind that this will be live or is immediately live on YouTube and you can watch it back on demand. So if your question isn't asked, it's probably because we've already covered it off in another question or you might have missed something earlier on. So please do watch the YouTube, go on to YouTube to watch the whole live stream later if you're feeling you're missing anything. So as promised, first question comes from Manchester earlier this year. And the first one on the list, because it was upvoted, so we have an upvote facility at the Careers Live events. So it was the most popular question that we didn't get around to answering, and that is, do you need a separate type rating for an A320-214 and an A321-271N? Somebody knows their variants.
Absolutely. So the short answer to that is no. The A320 type rating is a type rating for the whole family, so an A320 series. So that includes our whole easyJet fleet. And on our fleet, we have A319s, A320s, and A321s. So once you have that type rating, you can fly all aircraft. But what easyJet do is we have an additional training package as part of our the training that we offer for the 321 in addition. So whilst your type rating allows you to fly it, we just provide a little bit of additional support on the 321 specifically.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So you mentioned earlier the MPL program that you are running. The next question is specifically about MPL. Does doing an MPL with easyJet limit you looking at other job opportunities than doing an ATPL? What is the difference? I apologise, I have a screaming cat in the background. I'm going on mute.
Oh, no problem. I've got a dog next to me, so if he starts barking, I'm going to have to mute as well. So again, the answer is no, it doesn't limit your job opportunities. The MPL and the integrated route both give you a valid license. The main difference really is that the MPL program includes the type rating. So it increases the amount of type-specific training that you do in the simulator. So, for example, if you do an integrated route, you don't have a type specifically that you know you're going to fly yet because you're not yet affiliated to an airline. So the integrated course is very much generic. And then at the end of that, you would find out what airline you're going to work for, what type rating you would need. Whereas the MPL course, you're looked after by easyJet for the whole time. So you obviously know that the type you're going to fly is the A320. And what that means is we're able to make the training more specific to the job that you're going to be doing. So we have, as part of our MPL program, 150 hours of simulator time on the A320, whereas on a generic integrated course, the type rating may only be about 50 hours. So you're getting 3 times as much. But what it does do, it reduces the amount of single engine flying time that you would do. So basically, because that type of flying isn't as relevant to the job that you're going to be doing, the simulator is where you're going to get that real on-the-job experience. So it's making the job more, the training more specific to the job that you're going to do. The added benefit also is that you're linked to the airline from the beginning. So you have the support and interaction of your future colleagues from the beginning, and that transition into the airline is much more straightforward. So an example of the support that we provide is that our MPL cadets are invited to come and visit us at one of our busiest bases. They come to London Gatwick to see sort of behind the scenes what's going on. We also provide easyJet prep sessions, so to get them ready for the world of being an airline pilot within easyJet. The question obviously asked about job opportunities. So we do appreciate we are a short haul carrier, and some people would like to go into the long haul industry as they progress throughout their career. And we appreciate that. We understand that. So historically, we have had links with Emirates, where people have gone to work for Emirates for a few years and then come back to us. And just most recently, you may have noticed in the news in August, we announced that we have now an exchange scheme with Virgin, where 20 of our pilots are going to go and work for Virgin for about 3 years and then come back to us as well. So, we do understand that there are other types of airline flying, such as long haul, that people want to try. But of course, we always want people to come back to us as well. So we have set up those schemes to enable people to give that a go.
Brilliant. That's really good to hear. Yes, I'd seen the news about the Virgin exchange, which is fantastic, a fantastic opportunity for people to get both aspects. But yeah, okay, thank you very much for that explanation. Now, I can see we've got quite a few questions coming in now on the live stream, so I will pop back to one of those. So the first one up was Scott Williams. Thanks, Scott. So Scott's saying, hi, I'm interested in the lower pilot entry route for modular cadets. I note that the advert states that the A320 type rating will be self-funded. Is this upfront or a salary sacrifice? Thanks.
That is a great question. I don't actually know the answer to that. I would have to get back to you. I'll check with our recruitment team and just find out. I know in the past we have done both options, so I'll have a look into what this specific route is offering, and I'll get back to you via Karen.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, we can share the answer to that through our streams and newsletters, so that's no problem with that. So the next question is Maya Thorpe. Why this is often a question asked is about the height restriction. So why is there a 157 centimetre height restriction on the easyJet MPL programme? The CAE ATPL programme does not have this restriction. I'm 156, and I know of a lot of pilots who are 155 and fly Airbus and Boeing.
Absolutely. So it is an Airbus restriction based on, the ability to sort of sit in the seat, reach all the buttons. But what I would say is if you are under that that height restriction, then you can contact the team at CAE who do the initial part of the recruitment process, and they can do what we call a fit check, so to make sure that you can reach those buttons and that the seat is adaptable to your measurements. So it's not the end of the road based on your height. It's just that we would need to do an additional check just to make sure that the A320 and yourself were compatible.
Great, thanks. So I'm hopping back now to the Manchester questions. Now the next one is, can you name the 9 competencies? So this is an interesting one because it links to all sorts of different aspects, both recruitment and training. And I've often said that when you're preparing for an interview, a really good thing to do is prep for the interview is to create a matrix of the 9 competencies that we keep referring to, and then put different examples of things that you've done in your life to date that link back to those competencies. But if you don't know what the competencies are in the first place, you're a bit snookered on that one. So a test for you, Kate, if you wish to take it on, what are the 9 competencies?
I'm going to throw that back to the audience. Yes, I do know what 9 competencies are. Let's see if any of you can list them in the chat, and we'll have a look at the chat later on and see if anyone gets all 9 without Googling, please.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on the chat on that, and do our best to pick up on those. We'll come back to that question at the end and see if the audience were able to answer them all. But yeah, it's they're embedded in the MPL program and they're embedded in pilots' life, so certainly something that you know for sure. So I'm coming back to the question from Stuart Walker. So Stuart says, good evening. I completed my computer-based test for the low-hour pilot recruitment drive just under a month ago. I was wondering if there's a best guess when I might hear back on the next stage.
Congratulations on your application, and we really hope you every success with that, Stuart. What I would say is the recruitment team will be working through those, so please do bear with us. As far as I know from speaking to the recruitment team, there has been quite a high number of applications, so please be patient and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Great, thank you for that one, Kate. So the next one from Dodesy. Hi, will easyJet offer opportunities for licensed pilots?
Sorry, you cut out there, Karen, but I'll just read the question. So yes, we do have both EASA and CAA licensed pilots. Reason being, we are a European airline, so we have bases obviously in the UK, but we also have bases in France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Germany, and the Netherlands. So about half of our pilots are EASA licensed.
Brilliant, thank you. We are getting a lot of questions here about the costs and the funding side of things. I don't know whether there's what you want to say on that side of things, Kate at all. I just don't want to appear to be ignoring them specifically here, but
absolutely. So in terms of funding, the current training program that we provide is self-funded through the MPL program. And I think there was mention earlier about the self-funded type rating as well. It's the industry is ever changing, and I can't say whether or not in the future funded opportunities will arise. But in the current position that we're in, the course is self-funded, and there are ways to do that. Bank loans, borrowing from family and friends, but the salary after the training makes it worth the initial investment, and it really is an investment. So you're investing in yourself, your development, and it's an investment worth making, based on my personal experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And my reason for saying I didn't want to appear to ignore them is because financing and funding is a very personal subject, and a lot of people are asking the questions about how to fund and how different people do it. There are so many different ways, as you've just said, depending on your own personal circumstances. So I think the best way to establish that is to do some research on the internet, to do some chatting to people who've already gone through the training program about their own personal experiences for funding. So things like Pilot Careers Live face-to-face events, where you can speak to cadets, speak to pilots who've gone through training. They can really tell you about their own personal experience on funding and how they funded it themselves. And there's a whole gamut of different ways that people have done it. So and as you say, the industry evolves continuously into the way they provide funding solutions and funded or unfunded opportunities through training. So yeah, a very personal particular area. There's a direct entry pilot question here from, I apologise, I hope I say the name correctly, Tosin Ane. So any options for direct entry captain EASA ICAO licence, to your knowledge?
I have just seen a suggestion that there may be some direct entry captains for Portugal coming out. So keep an eye. Basically, our website is the best place to go, our careers website. So any opportunities that are available will be on there, and have a quick look and see if those opportunities match your requirements. And yeah, we look forward to welcoming you for selection if you meet the requirements.
Brilliant, thank you, Kate, for that one. So there's a question here from Disha Amanda, which links back to quite a few of the questions that we had outstanding at Manchester. And it is about qualifications and, well, sorry, I've looked forward. It's Josh Andrews' question, actually. I was talking about the qualifications. I'll come back to Dish's question afterwards. So the qualifications. Hi, I'm in year 11 doing my GCSE. What A levels would you suggest to take, and do the choices matter? And we've had lots of questions about the right GCSEs, the right A levels, and perhaps you can also wrap in there the degree question, because people are always asking, should I do a degree? Should I not do a degree? So a big one about the qualifications pre-training.
Brilliant. So as part of the selection process, there is a maths and a physics element to the aptitude tests, but they are GCSE level, and of course everybody has to do maths and science GCSE. So the required level of knowledge will be covered by the GCSEs that you sort of are required to take. So beyond that, the other sort of GCSE and A levels that I would recommend choosing are the ones that you enjoy, because at the end of the day, you've got 2 years of GCSE and 2 years available to complete. It's a very long time if you're doing subjects because you think you have to do them, as opposed to because you want to do them. So, for example, I did biology, physics and maths. The physics and maths were mainly because I thought I had to for this job that I wanted to do. And it turns out you don't. I've got friends who did graphic design and they're pilots. So it really is a case of just do what is going to make you happy, because those 2 years of A levels could be really, really long if you're not enjoying what you're doing. And in terms of degree, again, it's something that you can do if you want to. But if you know at the age of 16 in year 11 that you want to be a pilot, my advice, based on my personal experience, is to just go directly into a training program such as our MPL, because the university costs money, as does the flying training. So you're sort of doubling your loans, if you like, but also it just gets you a step further ahead. So again, based on personal experience, a lot of people tell me that I should go to university, that I had to go to university, but in hindsight, had I not made the choice to go straight to flying school, I certainly wouldn't be sat here today, because everything that's happened in my career, has happened in the way it has because I didn't go to university and do a degree first. So do what feels right for you. There's no right or wrong. And if you're determined, you'll get there regardless of what route you take.
Yeah, and something that I've often said in response to being asked that question, and I have mentioned this on previous live streams, the university option does offer you the opportunity for a little bit of life experience. So given that you can apply to pilot training programs at the age of 18, you might not have had a huge amount of life experience at that particular point, and you are going to be thrown out into the world of being responsible for a lot of passengers on board of a very expensive piece of equipment. So depending on how you feel about your level of maturity, it might be that university is a good option just to build those life skills before you go into such a responsible career. But again, as you said, it's very much down to the individual, isn't it? What you feel you need at that particular point in your life. But yeah, it's just something else to consider there. Thank you. Hopefully that answers all the GCSE questions. So if we get any more GCSE A-level degree questions, unless they're specifically different, I will skip past them just to give people a heads up. So as promised, let me go back to Disha's question. So I understand that in the assessment process with MPL, the exam is sat with symbiotics. Apart from purchasing tests, what's the other best ways to revise for the exam? And if just before you answer that, Kate, if I just may throw in, there was one outstanding question from Manchester, which was about the style of exams that are brought into the selection process. So maybe we can wrap all of that in, not just the symbiotics one.
Absolutely. So the tests that you'll sit as part of the selection process, there will be some sort of written, your maths, for example, maybe 30 questions. They get gradually harder as you go. Pen and paper, no calculators allowed. And then there'll be some that are computer based. So there's lots of different activities going on the screen, and you're having to multitask and do lots of different things at once. And then you'll do that test a couple of times, and they're looking for progression as you go. So we're looking for progress made and sort of the ability to learn and adapt as we go. So there's basically a mixture. We're looking for a little bit of written, a little bit of hands-on practical assessments as well. And then in the third stage of the selection process, which is done by the EasyJet recruitment team, there's also a group exercise and an interview. So again, we're looking for those personal skills. So the second stage looks at your aptitude. The third stage looks at your people skills, your competencies, as we've talked about already. And those two elements come together to hopefully get what we're looking for from a candidate. In terms of the symbiotics, they do provide a pack that you can purchase to practice, but there's many free online options as well to give a go. Also, as I said, the GCSE maths and science, the maths and the physics tests are GCSE levels. So, if you've got some old revision notes from your GCSE maths and science, refer back to those and have a little go at, just your standard sort of maths questions as well. But the more work you can do, the more preparation you can do, the better.
Thank you very much. So talking of preparation, the next question is from Lewis. Hi, I'm 15 and want to be a pilot. Do you do an apprenticeship scheme? So there is that question, but also again, linking back to Manchester, there are lots of questions about how do I prepare for when I am ready to apply. So perhaps we can build that into this answer as well, potentially.
Absolutely. So the first offer apprenticeship is something that is active, live in terms of the government Department for Education apprenticeship programs, but there aren't currently any airlines that are making use of that apprenticeship scheme. So it is something that we're looking into, but currently in terms of an actual apprenticeship scheme, it isn't something that we offer. As I say, there aren't any airlines taking up that apprenticeship program at the moment. But back to the other part of your question, Karen, in terms of preparation, I did see something in the chat there about if you've got flying experience. So from my personal experience, again, I was in the Air Cadets, so I managed to get some gliding and some flying experience through the Air Cadets. I did also do a couple of hours at my local flying club, just to make sure that it was something that I really wanted to do. But of course, hours and hours at the flying club can get very expensive. It's a very expensive hobby to have. So I didn't get a full PPL. And if people want to do that and have the funds to do so, absolutely, the more flying experience you have, the better. But it's not necessary. A couple of hours so that you know that you enjoy it and you've got the aptitude for it is enough. And then obviously the course will give you everything that you need to be the airline pilot that we're looking for at the end. So a little bit of a flying experience, or an appreciation of what goes on. If you want to just go to your local flying club and volunteer and clean airplanes, there's lots of people that did that to earn their hours as well, and just being surrounded by that sort of environment. But as the competencies that we discussed, they're starting to come in. Leadership and teamwork is one of those competencies. So anything that you can do to be part of a team, so whether that be a sports team or in the cadets, part of your squadron, the ability to get leadership experience as well. You know, you may be the captain of that football team, or you may be the corporal on your squadron. So any activities that you enjoy that you can lean on in your interview to show examples, as Karen said, of those competencies is great experience and practice ready for your interview. Karen, I think you're muted, sorry.
I am, thanks. So thank you, Kate. You mentioned somebody had asked about flight experience, and yes, it's Oscar who'd asked a question much further down where he was saying he's in year 11 and training as a glider pilot. And yeah, you've answered the question, but yes, it can be really useful to build your own background experience. Not necessarily something that puts you ahead in the selection process, but gives you all sorts of other skills and experience to draw from when you're answering them. And also, I personally, I'd always recommend that you've got at least an hour's flying experience before you apply to a cadet program, just to make sure you do actually like it, which is something that quite often people have not done before they come along, which makes that motivation questionable as well. But also it's as basic as make sure you like it and you feel okay once you're airborne. So yeah, okay. Now I'm going to go back because I scrolled down to find that one. I'm going to get myself completely lost otherwise. So there's a lot of questions coming in about modular, ATPL, whether there's options for people who have done a modular route or have done an ATPL route. I know you touched on this earlier, but whether you can answer that question a little bit specifically about whether you can still go to EasyJet if you've got an ATPL or if you've got the modular route to the ATPL. You're on mute now. It works both ways. Perfect timing.
Sorry. Yes, so the MPL program, as we've widely advertised, is 200 pilots per year. But each year we generally take more than those 200 pilots. So, for example, this year there was about 480 new pilots joined EasyJet. So the other 280 have to come from elsewhere. And generally they do come from an integrated course. But as we touched on earlier, this year as well, we have opened to low hours modular pilots as well. The only difference to that entry route is that they would need to do a short refresher program before starting their type rating, and you need to pass that refresher program in order to start the type rating. So that's just a small additional element to the recruitment process compared to the other routes. But yeah, so there's that option. There's also the integrated route where we recruit from different ATOs. So our recruitment team will be in direct contact with the ATOs that we recruit from, and they will go through the selection process and then join us for type rating, and join us by that route. So there's the three options really: MPL, modular now, and integrated as well. So yeah, you're all welcome.
Fabulous, thank you. I think that hopefully answers Harry's question, Harry Burt's question, and certainly some others further down the list that if I scroll, I'll lose myself again. So I'm not going to scroll this time. Charles Fontaine, you've asked, and I think we possibly explained this, but I can see why there may still be some confusion. Hi, I didn't see there was a frozen ATPL in the, I think that's probably the curriculum or the summary, the course. Is it going to be included, or do we need to pass it by ourselves? So it would be worth explaining how the frozen ATPL works with the MPL program, Kate, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yeah, of course. So there's a lot of misconceptions about MPL, ATPL, CPL. I can understand why, because there are lots of acronyms, and for people that aren't in the industry, it can get very confusing. So an integrated course, at the end of it, you'll have a CPL with an instrument rating, with a multi-crew corporation course, and all of that together is a frozen ATPL. You then need to get your type rating as well to make that complete, to enable you to fly for an airline. So there's lots of different bits that they put together into a blanket, what they call a frozen ATPL. An MPL is effectively a frozen ATPL as well, because at the same point, the 1500 hour mark where you'd unfreeze an ATPL, going the integrated route, an MPL can be converted to an ATPL. So effectively, both an MPL and an integrated course lead you to an ATPL in the long run. But because the integrated route has for so long been called the ATPL route, I think it has caused a little bit of confusion around what an NPL means by comparison. So effectively, the comparison of an NPL to an ATPL is the wrong comparison to make. It's you can compare an integrated course or a frozen ATPL to an NPL, and then they both become an ATPL at the same time at that 1500 hour point. Hopefully that clears.
Brilliantly explained. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hopefully that answers the question for many people as to how that all works. Sam, we've answered your question at some point. So Yusuf, when will there be an open day at EasyJet for NPL?
That is a great question. So we run open days very regularly. I believe the next one is on the 30th of November at our Gatwick Sim Centre. So you're more than welcome to come along. The way to find out about those is go on to the CAE events page. So all of our events are run via CAE because that's our provider for our NPL programme. So yeah, search CAE events. The 30th of November, I'll be there alongside some of my colleagues from EasyJet and the CAE team as well, and they'll talk you through the selection process. We'll talk to you in a bit more detail about the course, and you'll get a tour of our centre, maybe even get to have a look in one of the simulators, maybe even get to have a go. I can't promise, but if there is a sim available, then we'll try our best to get you a go in the sim as well.
Brilliant. I got there. I unmuted myself. Thank you very much. That's great. Disha, finishing Generation EasyJet and going in as a second or first officer, how does the salary look? I've noticed there's a couple of salary questions actually. So yeah, are you able to share some info on that, please, Kate?
Absolutely. The salaries are very competitive. There's a rank structure of basically second officer, first officer, senior first officer, captain. It isn't a pay scale based on how long you've been in the airline or, a 30-year pay scale or anything like that. It's just based on your rank structure. So honestly, if you Google salaries, it will come up. So, I'll be honest, it's around the £50,000 mark. So yeah, it's very competitive with other airlines in the current UK market.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So the next person, Jada Burby and Bell and Nathan Westhead and RMD 420 and Angarad have all been answering the competencies question. So let's see if we can cover all 9 here without me completely losing track of where we are. So Jay Burby, decision making. So that's 1, yeah. Bell, teamwork, that's 2. Flight path management and automation, that's 3. Yeah, it's not 4, or is it 4? Does that make it 4?
There's flight path management manual and flight path management automation. So yeah, there's 2 flight path managements. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Situation awareness, so that's the 5th. We haven't had communication yet, have we? So is communication a competency, or is that considered to be threaded throughout them all as one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Workload management, we had a couple of times there. Oh, Dodsey here. Oh, leadership. Hadn't mentioned that one before.
So teamwork comes together as one competency. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. I'm not seeing any others yet, so we're still a couple short, aren't we? It's always difficult to work out which ones we've missed now, but I can't remember where we've got to. But any that come to
all at the end, make sure.
Those of you that you've put them forward so far, they are all correct. So well done. So Lewis, we've answered your question about the NPL and the ATPL. Grace, hi. Does EasyJet recruit pilots who live in Northern Ireland? I'd personally like to be based in Belfast. However, it's a small airport, and I'm quite limited to airports as it's a small part of the UK.
Absolutely. Belfast is one of our bases. We have bases all across the UK, so Glasgow, Edinburgh, Belfast, Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, Bristol, Luton, soon to be Southend and Gatwick. So we've got bases all across the UK. But yes, Northern Ireland, we're the biggest operator in Belfast, Aldergrove. We also fly into Belfast City as well. And we actually night stop from Gatwick in Belfast City. So Aldergrove is based. So there are a number of our crew based there, a growing base as well, lots of opportunities for being based in Belfast. So we get a lot of our new pilots going to Belfast as their first base. So it's great to hear that you're interested in being based there.
Lovely, that's good news, hopefully, for you, Grace. Taina, I'm currently doing my PPL and I'm aware that I'll have to redo my training and exams when joining CAE. However, does this also apply to the radio telephony exam, RT?
That's a great question. So obviously your PPL exams, you won't count towards your training. Obviously, the ATPL exams all need to be done as part of the MPL course. So please don't do any ATPL exams before starting a course, or else you won't be able to start. You have to have not done any to start the course. And then, of course, yeah, you'll have already had a good number of hours, but the course doesn't sort of credit those hours. It's very much you have to redo all the hours. But the RT exam, as far as I'm aware, as long as you've got evidence that you've completed it, then that is sufficient.
Okay, thank you. Inez, what's the percentage of women in the cockpit at easyJet among the total number of pilots?
That's a great question. So it's sitting around 6.5%. A number that I really, really like at the moment is we have 99 female captains, which, the Amelia Earhart 99 Club, I just think it's fantastic that our current captains is sitting at 99. So, yeah, small numbers by comparison to, the number of male pilots, but it is growing. We are still actively promoting diversity within the flight deck, and we hope to see that number grow as more of our female pilots get out into the communities to talk about our jobs and encourage people from all backgrounds, all genders to apply.
Super. Yeah, it's not just about female, it's about general diversity, isn't it, as well? But yeah, we've really started to see the numbers increase in recent years. So the efforts have been starting to pay off, but still a long way to go, I think. But it's all positive. It's heading in the right direction. So Donna, we've answered questions already about salary, and I'll just recap for people that if you've missed, if I don't ask your question or we say we've already answered it, you can watch this whole live stream back on YouTube. So don't think that we're ignoring you. We're just not repeating something that's already been covered off. RMD, does easyJet pilot program have any links with training schools? You've mentioned CAE, any others as well?
So our NPL program is with CAE, but we have recruited in the past from other flying schools. The question there's mentioned Leading Edge. Yeah, we have recruited from Leading Edge, Skyborne, L3, all of those flying school, FTE as well. I don't want to miss anybody out, so I'm trying to make sure I cover them all. But all of those flying schools that we have recruited from will have mentioned it on their kind of social media and on their website and everything like that. So while CAE is specifically for our NPL, the integrated programs and the ATOs that we recruit from are quite varied.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to say that there's such a lot of information on the internet. So this kind of question, you can find the answer by doing a quick Google search. So have a good look, and then don't want to miss anybody out. That's always the scare when we get asked a question like that. So do have a look and make sure if you're interested in a particular ATO, have a look and see, because they will definitely tell you on their website if they're involved in some way, shape or form, and their social media. Harvey's asked about the requirements for tagging at ATOs.
So what I would say is do your best throughout your training if you're at an ATO already, because they'll be looking for things like a small number of repeats, if any, on your ATPL exams. So say a maximum of 3 to 5 resits on your exams. We might be looking for a certain average. So it may be, across your ATPL exams, looking for an 85% average. That's a lot of airlines look for that as a minimum. They'd also be looking for, hopefully first-time passes in your sort of progress tests and things like that. So what I would say is just do your best in your training. The requirements might change throughout the different seasons. I know this is going to be on YouTube for a long time, so I wouldn't like to set an absolute bar, but give it your best, give it your everything, and hopefully you'll meet the requirements.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we've already answered Disha's question. You've just answered James's question about the ATPL average. A lot of people ask about what qualities you're looking for on the day of selection. So Matt Stephen, hi, Kate, my application is in via the low hour pilot route. As far as an assessment day goes, what qualities do easyJet want to see from us on the day? I'm feeling this might link back to the competencies.
Absolutely. So yeah, the interview will very much be competency based. So we're looking for good communication skills, good teamwork, which will come out in the group exercise. Examples of leadership. So when you're being asked questions in your interview, it's really good to have those examples, as Karen mentioned, of times when you have displayed the behaviours that we're looking for. So, you know, when have you been a good communicator? When have you led a team? When have you resolved a conflict? That kind of thing. We're also looking for motivation. So why do you want to come and work for easyJet? What is it about easyJet that you think aligns with your values? So having a look into the history of the airline, our current strategy, what the airline are doing in terms of diversity, as we've already mentioned it, sustainability. There are so many projects that are ongoing within the airline that really align with my values, those being two of them. So yeah, what is it about easyJet that you like, and what is it that you can bring to the airline as well? So we're really looking for your motivation for us as an airline, hoping that you can show all of the things and the skills that you can bring as well in terms of that leadership and teamwork. I think I'm muted again, Karen.
Matt and Alex, I think we've already asked your questions for you. Ellie has asked the question, what location? And actually, Ellie and somebody else previously, I remember, asked a similar question to this. What location does the MPL course use for the core phase training, and are there any delays in core phase training?
So the core phase is always where, if there were going to be delays, it would happen in the core phase, because the core phase is obviously where you're flying a real aeroplane. In the ground school, you're in a classroom, and there isn't many external factors. In the sim phase, again, you're in a building with devices. Again, not as many external factors. Obviously, devices break down, but we have engineering cover on site to fix any of those issues. But the core phase is where you have external factors. So you have weather, again, technical issues and that may need to be resolved. So if there were ever going to be delays, it would be in the core phase. But we use 2 sites for our MPL training. We use Phoenix in Arizona, in the United States, and also Malaga in Spain. So depending on when you come out of the ground school phase would depend on which location you went to. But yeah, we can never say there'll be no delays in the core phase, because it just depends on the external factors such as weather, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen it myself many times, and that's absolutely true. Thank you, Kate, for answering that one. There's a couple of people asking that question. So, Jono, he's asked about age, basically. So, and there's a few people asking about age from both spectrums. So could you answer the question? So do you have an appetite for recruiting slightly older pilots, please?
Absolutely. So we've already touched on diversity on the gender question, but as Karen said, diversity is about so much more than gender, and age is one of those metrics of diversity. We have a lot of 18-year-old cadets that come through. Our oldest cadet at the moment is 52. So you've got a large spectrum there of different ages, different backgrounds, different experiences. Karen mentioned life experience earlier. Pilots in their 30s, 40s bring a different, background than your 18-year-olds, and different to your 52-year-olds. So it really, all people are welcome. Age is irrelevant. It's just a number.
I'm sure that's encouraging news. It always comes up, doesn't it? So somehow or other, we're not getting that message out as an industry wildly enough, because people are really concerned about age. But yeah, we want a whole mix of people there with all sorts of different backgrounds of experience. So yeah, come and join us as an industry for sure. So the next few questions I think we've already answered. So Salem, Dodzi, I think we've already answered. Oscar, we covered yours off earlier. Tana, I've heard that Europe is banning avgas in 2025 and was wondering how much of an effect this will have on our training.
Well, obviously, I think a lot of different countries set different targets of, we're going to do this by 2030, this by 2050. But obviously, with every government that comes in, the plans change as well. But there are currently flying schools out there that fly all electric aircraft. So there are technologies being developed to make sure that we are being as sustainable as we possibly can be. And obviously, we need to train pilots to enable them to fly the airlines. So it really is a sort of a focus within the industry to make sure that training is sustained.
I feel okay. I'm just going to. Oh, I didn't mean to make myself this big. Right, there you go. I'm just going to quickly jump in on the lead question. The EU is actually about to ban tetraethyl lead, which is the lead in avgas it's blended with. But they're not banning its sale, they're banning its transport and its manufacture. So what avgas will be refined or blended elsewhere and will still be available in Europe. It probably won't be any cheaper, but it's tetraethyl lead, which incidentally, the whole world's tetraethyl lead is produced from one factory in the UK. But effectively, avgas will still be available, but tetraethyl lead won't be. So sorry, I'm off now. See you later.
Well, thanks for the insight. That's good to know.
Great to have you join us. For those of you who didn't know who that was, that's Ian Seeger, who's part of the Pilot Careers Live team. So thank you, Ian. Great insight. I was trying to catch up on myself there, taking advantage. So again, a few questions that have come through a couple of times. So if you've put your question through already and we've answered it, please don't retype it, because it's testing me here, having to read through all the questions and not miss anything. So Nathan Westhead, I'm currently in the final stages of an integrated ATPL with an ATO. Does easyJet have a preference on the aircraft that the ATO provides for the APS MCC stage? It may be worth just explaining the APS MCC very briefly as well for those who aren't familiar with that terminology, please, Kate.
Just find my unmute button. So Nathan, my question would then be which ATO are you with? Because hopefully your ATO is one of the providers that we have already listed that we use, and if you can continue your APS MCC with that ATO, then fantastic. If not, I'd recommend going to one of the ATOs that I've already listed for the APS MCC. I know some of them do just that course separately. So that is an element of the frozen ATPL that I mentioned earlier. So when you've done your integrated ATPL course, which will include your CPL, your instrument rating, you'll then need to do the APS MCC, which is your multi-crew cooperation course. So that will enable you then to start type rating. So that's kind of the final element of your integrated course, your frozen ATPL, before you start the type rating. So yeah, I just recommend going to one of the ATOs that we recruit from that I've already mentioned earlier.
Because obviously their devices are already approved by you from that perspective, so whatever they're using is definitely acceptable by easyJet. So yeah. Okay, brilliant. So disturbed, we hope you're not disturbed anymore. We've answered your question for you, and Harvey also. Salem, I am a refugee. Do I need to be concerned about it, or it's a diversity environment? So I didn't read that very well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, as we've mentioned already, diversity is such a broad thing. Gender, religion, background. Doesn't matter what your background is. It's those core skills that we're looking for from every pilot. The teamwork, the communication, the leadership, the problem solving. It's so, yeah, as I say, your refugee status doesn't affect your whether or not you'll be welcome in the flight deck, everybody is welcome. Obviously, the only thing is you have your right to live and work in the country that you would be getting a job in, whether that be the UK or the EU. So that's something that you have to look into as well.
Thank you. So RMD, we've answered your question previously. This next question from Disha, this doesn't exactly tie in. I actually think it does, but I want to gain more aviation experience, mostly work experience, living in a rural area. There are not many airports, etc. Any suggestions? How can I get aviation work experience? And there's a few other questions about whether I can get work experience with easyJet in summer or winter. Yeah, that sort of thing, I think, is if you can answer about that.
Okay, so in terms of the rural aspect, even if you're rural, there should hopefully be a small airfield, you know, a local flying club, that kind of thing. Whilst the airport that's closest to you may not be a you know, a commercial airport or an international airport, there may still be opportunities, you know, to join a local flying club. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, washing airplanes, just talking to people and interacting with people that are aviation enthusiasts will help you to gain some experience of the industry. In terms of work experience with easyJet, there are opportunities. It's something that we link up with certain schools that are close to our airfields, you know, our Luton hangar, things like that. So if your school is one of the ones that we're connected to, that's great. But otherwise, I'd say, you know, reach out to us and we'll see how we can assist.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So we've answered quite a few of the questions that are coming up after that, which are to do with funding. So please do listen back to get those answers. Simon Fuchs, hi there, 2 questions. I think we've answered the second half of your question, Simon, already, but the first half, what does the refresher training you mentioned involve, please?
That's a great question. So the refresher training you're referring to is as part of the modular entry route. So you still have to do the selection process in the same way as everybody else. So that would include your aptitude test, your group exercise, but the refresher training is a ground school day, so 8 hours of ground school, and some simulator sessions that you would need to get through and to pass, to show that your you know, your likelihood of passing the type rating is there. So basically, you know, 1 ground school day and 3 or 4 simulator sessions is the short refresher course, and it is just to make sure that you have the aptitude for the type rating and to join us as a pilot with us.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've answered the next few questions. So EASA, Cillian, Harvey, we've answered yours a few times, Harvey. Ellie, we've covered that one as well. So Oscar, one more question. What's the medical requirement for the easyJet MPL, and is it worth getting a Class 1 medical prior to applying to make sure you're suitable? Thank you once again. Thank you, Oscar.
If you have any concerns about your medical status, I would recommend getting a Class 1 medical prior to applying, because it would be such a shame to go through the application process, be successful, and then unfortunately not you know, be able to join us because of your medical status. And sometimes if you do have a medical history, it may take some time to go through the process of getting additional tests or paperwork. So it may be something you want to do in advance, or perhaps alongside your selection, but yes, you would need a Class 1 to join us. So yeah, just making sure that you have all the requirements for that before getting your hopes up.
Yeah, thank you. JK Moon, is it possible to be stationed abroad immediately after finishing training?
So post-Brexit, it is more challenging to be based abroad. So I was based in Paris for 3 years. You know, previously all UK citizens had the right to live and work in the EU. Obviously now it's very different. So if you're lucky to have an EU passport and a EASA license, then of course you can work abroad. But you would need to have the right to live and work in the country that you're hoping to be based in, and then also the appropriate flying license as well. So effectively, EU passport, EU license, UK passport, UK license. And you would there are ways to transfer between the two, but obviously you need 2 passports to enable you to do that, and not everybody is lucky enough to have that opportunity.
Okay, thanks. I'm conscious that we haven't got a huge amount of time left, so I'm going to see if we can do some quick fire ones to get through to as many as possible. So RMD, is the RT exam different for ATPL than PPL?
So the RT exam is separate to your ATPL and your PPL exam, so it's a completely separate thing that you need to pass in addition to your ATPL or your PPL exams. Basically, it's a separate element of the program. You have your ATPL exams, you do your flying training, and you have your RT exam as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure this next one is a quick one to answer, but how does easyJet handle crew? So this is Donna from Donna. How does easyJet handle crew scheduling to balance flying hours with adequate rest time? How does easyJet manage pilot fatigue, and what resources are available to help pilots manage work-life balance?
Very strictly is the answer. So there are so many rules and regulations around scheduling, flying hours, the amount of rest that you need. So there is an absolute limit, and that limit cannot be crossed and will not be crossed. So that is effectively the law, and we make sure that our scheduling allows for that. Obviously, busy summer schedule versus a quieter winter schedule. There are times of the year where you will be flying more, but you will never fly outside of your legal limits, and you always get adequate rest time afterwards and beforehand to make sure that you're fit to fly and well rested after you've flown. In terms of pilot fatigue, it's a requirement of anybody's license. If you hold a pilot's license, it's within your sort of the regulation of holding that license is that you don't fly if you're not fit to do so. So if you're not fit to fly due to fatigue or sickness, you don't fly. And in terms of work-life balance, there are opportunities if you'd like to go part-time, work less and more home life, then absolutely there are opportunities available for that. So yeah, there's a really good offering actually. Whatever lifestyle you would like, there is a roster pattern to fit in.
Thank you. I've just been scrolling through whilst you were answering that to see if there are any kind of key subject areas that we haven't really touched on yet. So I'm going to try and pick one of those. And something that a few people have asked is about bases. So Harry Stanley Jones has asked, has said, great to see you at CAE the other day, Kate. What are the chances of being based at a chosen airport, or is it simply based on pilot demand? Thank you. Now, I think I know your mum and dad, Harry, funnily enough, but there we go. Just realised I read the name out. Go, Kate, sorry.
Small world.
Yeah.
The chances, it really does depend on, say, for example, a whole course wanted to be based in Belfast, as Grace did earlier, but we didn't have any requirements there, then, you would be based where pilot demand was required. But generally, because we recruit, across the country, across Europe, it does work out quite nicely that we fit people mostly where they want to be. We generally give people ask people for a couple of preferences, but it really is a preference, and we'll base people where the operational demand is required. But there is an opportunity to transfer between bases as well once you've joined the airline, if you don't get your base of choice straight away. So for example, I am Gatwick based. Gatwick was my first base. I'm not from anywhere near Gatwick. I grew up 350 miles away from Gatwick. It wasn't my first choice, but I'm still living here 13 years later, after a bit of a holiday to Paris, because who knows where life's going to take you, and it may be that you get based somewhere that initially you think isn't a great choice, and it turns out to be the best choice. So I'd say be open-minded with your first base, and it may end up being where you stay.
Thank you, Kate. So I have a feeling we've pretty much covered most people's questions here. There is one that I've purposely missed because I thought it'd be a nice one to finish on, and that is how you yourself became a pilot. And there's a couple of other that kind of link into that. So how do you enjoy the work? How long have you been a pilot? So those kind of things. Thank you, if you wouldn't mind answering that.
Yeah, so I became a pilot because I love flying. As I mentioned, I was in the air cadets. I loved flying. I didn't really know what the airline world would be like. I should have done more research, but luckily I like it. So it's great that you're here, getting that, asking those questions today to prepare yourselves for the job. So I trained through an integrated route, as I mentioned. Joined EasyJet. So many opportunities with EasyJet to fly to different destinations, different routes. Absolutely, loved every minute of my flying, and then just so passionate about what I do. I just enjoyed sort of helping other people get into the industry as well. So I think you have to be passionate about what you do. So yeah, if you're all passionate about aviation, and I say there's a place within the industry for all of you.
That's a really nice ending point. Thank you very much. So, huge thank you to everybody who's joined us tonight, and to those of you who are already saying thank you on the chat. That's really appreciated. And the big thank you goes to Kate, of course. Very much. Thank you very much indeed, Kate, for joining us this evening. And on behalf of the whole PCL community, we wish you luck with what's coming next in your world, because it's obviously the baby imminent, as you explained at the beginning. You're shortly to go on maternity leave, so we wish you all the best with that. And thank you to everybody. Good luck with your applications, with your ongoing training, whatever phase you might have been at. And don't forget, Pilot Careers Live events are still going on this year. So we've got one in Dublin this weekend, if you happen to be nearby there. Heathrow on the 2nd of November, and Rome if you happen to be in Italy on the 23rd of November, and then it all starts again for 2025. So thank you again to Kate, all the best, and thank you to everybody. Take care and see you again soon.
Thanks everyone.